Hello and welcome back. I'm so delighted to have you here. I have a guest for us today that I think will be create insights for you and be inspirational and have you start thinking about your business as a reflection of self-worth. Claire, I'm so happy that you're here. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you so much for having me, Fabienne. I'm Claire Dowdle. Cina. I'm a psychologist based in Denver, and I just finished up my 2 years in Boldheart about a month ago.
Yes, and I'm celebrating you here today, and you've created some really inspiring results. Before we dive into our topic today and about your journey, would you like to share a little bit about where you were specifically 2 years ago when you realized that you weren't getting your business to where you wanted to, and that maybe Boldheart was the place where you could get some help? Just paint the picture of what your business and your life looked like if you're willing to do that.
Yeah, definitely. So as a psychologist, I never really thought of myself as a business person or an entrepreneur. And in 2021, if we go back a little bit further, as I was about to head out on maternity leave with my first kiddo, I felt like, am I really going to refer all my clients out and stop my stream of people coming in? And so I decided at that time I ended up hiring 2 people. And the first couple of years of business and growing with a couple of employees actually was very natural and very easy. And I had this mindset that having a business was just about being organized. And I kind of took it for granted. And as time went, I hired a few more people. I had another child. And then I found myself at, the end of 2023 feeling like all of a sudden I have this bigger business than I had planned on. All of a sudden I'm managing, greater overhead, more systems. And I just felt really confused. So I went from feeling like, oh, this is kind of a piece of cake to then needing some support and really being quite lost. And so I was looking around for a business coach, and that's when I found Boldheart and got going in the program. And I really got some real structure that I needed at that point.
Just because the women who listen to this podcast sometimes feel like they're the only ones who are experiencing confusion or overwhelm or feeling like they're the bottleneck. Do you mind describing what that looked like in 2003? What were you working on evenings and weekends? You had 2 little kids. You had all of these people in your business. Do you mind sharing what you were making or like what the business was making? What was not working in the business at that time?
Yeah, I would say that in the beginning, when I'm saying it felt like it came easily, it was happening. People were coming through the door and we were getting clients and we were growing, but I had no idea really how that was happening.
Oh,
And
okay.
so then all of a sudden, when I had more caseloads to fill and more clinicians, I all of a sudden had greater responsibility without this feeling of real control of how do I get more clients in the door? What other systems do I need? So I almost felt like I was blindly grabbing for a solution. Like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe this thing is going to help, or maybe this random marketing person is going to help without really being grounded and having a strategy in place. At that point, the business was bringing in, I think we were about 375,000 that year, which was about the same as the year before that. And so I had this feeling of how are we going to grow? How am I going to make enough money to feel like this makes sense for me? And I need a real game plan at this point.
Yeah. And so you jumped into Boldheart. And would you be willing to talk about some of the things that you applied? Because there is probably another clinician or, owner of a clinical practice who is feeling exactly what you felt a couple of years ago. She's probably experiencing the same things. And she would love to hear what is it that you put in place to create the results that you will tell us about in a minute.
Yeah. I would say that coming into Boldheart, I had a good baseline of systems to make the business run smooth and organized. But what I really needed is an understanding of who to hire, how to hire. That was a big one for me. And I felt like I was choosing people based on how I vibed with them, which is one important part, but is certainly not all of it. And so that was one of the first things I learned through Boldheart was how do I actually have the skills to figure out who should be in what role? And with one of my managers at the practice, I sat down with her. I gave her some of the assessments that we had gone through to really see what area should she be working in. And that really fundamentally changed her role at the practice and how I was seeing what I was assigning to her. And then it was really about upgrading my systems to a whole new place of what are actually my policies and my procedures in a more big picture way. Because granted, things are running smoothly day to day, but what does that really look like when I'm bringing in someone new, when I'm really thinking about growth from a place of clarity and strategy? So everything that I've learned in Boldheart, there's still more to do in terms of how I would keep applying things. But I know now what the recipe is, which is so relieving.
Yeah, I think people like you and I, and really probably all the listeners of the show, we just put up our shingle. Like you probably had more business training, I don't know, in your psychology training than I had, because I just decided, okay, I'm going to open up a business and, the clients will come. And then, I'll be able to do everything myself. Oh, wait, I can't do everything myself. I need to hire somebody. But gosh, I never, in the beginning, 25 years ago, I never took a single class on hiring, delegating, and certainly not using assessments to get the right people in place. And what is this thing about systems and documentation and policies and procedures? And without these things, it can be like we're floating rudderless in the water and wondering, like, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing this differently? And I feel like we entrepreneurs just never get taught this until we seek out something like what you've received now at Boldheart.
Yes.
But it can feel really isolating and, to use your words, confusing.
For sure. And as a business owner, when I'm the one in charge, I'm trying to be a leader for the people at the practice. I don't want to show them when I'm feeling that confusion. And so there is that feeling of I'm holding this myself. And so just being able to share that with people at Boldheart, the other women, has been so nice. But I'd also say, like, when you're grabbing for things as a solution, you're also, I do accept that that's part of the process in business, is trial and error to some extent. However, when that's really the only strategy, you end up wasting a lot of time and money and a lot of hires. There's a lot of reactionary choices, and that's definitely where I was at. And when I came into Boldheart, I had this feeling like if I just hire more, if I just have X amount of clinicians and make X amount of revenue, then everything will kind of be solved, versus how do I pare down what I'm spending? How do I be really focused about my strategy and how I'm spending so that I'm not wasting, and that also growth comes at a cost too. And that was something I really didn't understand before being Boldheart.
Yeah, I think you're touching on three big pillars that I found are the key drivers to business success for women in business. You're talking about the strategy, so the team and the systems and the marketing and things like that. But you're also talking about the community. You just touched on that. And the third is the inner work that I'd like to dive deeper in, because that's also your wheelhouse. But you just touched upon being in a container for 2 years with other women who are at the same level as you have been and who had the same aspirations. What was that like, just being surrounded by all of these people? Well, do you feel like they believed in you as you believed in them? Like, what was beneficial about not doing this by yourself, but instead doing it in community?
So many things, but one piece is, as you're talking through it, it's just coming to me of, I was so inspired by all of these women while also being able to see the messy.
Yeah.
And so it helped me see myself in a different way of, I am doing it. And also this is hard and messy and complicated and confusing. And seeing how dedicated and action oriented these women are was very helpful for me, because I'm an idea person. I love a million ideas, and really seeing someone have an idea and then coming back the next day during a training and have already done the thing they thought about was like, wow. It helped me see how quickly you can get things done and how efficiently. But yeah, it made me feel less alone. It gave me a space to be able to talk through the ups and downs
Yeah.
and be vulnerable in that way.
Yeah, in fact, yesterday I led the annual planning and strategy day, which is where we all come together as a Boldheart community for half a day. And we map out the big projects that we are each working on. I do it alongside everybody else. And towards the end, I mean, it was just like so close. There were breakouts, everybody's talking, because you probably enjoyed doing that with us as well. There were two women who spoke at the very end yesterday. One of them in 2025 got her business to 2 million. And so we were celebrating that. But the other part of it was she's like, I've also had just a tough year. And there was so much love in the Zoom room. It was such this camaraderie, like a place that like where you can celebrate, like, wow, 2 million a year in just 1 year. And then also like, hey, you guys, this was a tough year and I had to dig deep and I had to be really discerning about some of my relationships and stuff like that. And then another woman who had gotten her business to 6 figures, who'd gone viral on social media and who created these programs and increased her revenues dramatically. She started doubting herself feeling like an imposter. And so like the whole community came in and supported her. And I like what you've brought up. It's kind of like this, I'm not alone and I get to have big dreams, but I also don't have to be embarrassed if there are parts of me that, need a soft place to land.
Yeah. And, something's coming up as you're saying that. The thing that I didn't expect about entrepreneurship is that doing better and achieving more brings out more opportunity for the self-work and for the messy. So to me, they're hand in hand, which is, an opportunity. But, when you're saying that, like someone's saying, I got to 2 million and also it's a hard year. I mean, in some ways that makes sense to me now in a different way.
Yeah. It's not that they always go hand in hand, but I underline and celebrate what you've just said is as you go and step more fully into the direction of your dreams, your old paradigms, your old mindset, your old beliefs, ways of showing up are going to be questioned. Because you've heard me say this probably a million times, is the person who created the results you have today is not the person who will create the next level result. So what got you to 6 figures is never going to get you to 7 figures. Not the team. The team that got you to 6 figures, or lack thereof, right, will not get you to 7 figures. Same with the systems, but also the mindset and the habits and the beliefs and the identity. And so a big part, right? So we were talking about the 3 pillars. You've got the strategy, which is massively important, the community, which removes the self-doubt because you're no longer in isolation, but the inner work goes hand in hand, at least at Boldheart, because I won't introduce a new concept. I won't invite somebody to raise their rates or hire a second in command or shift their business model from one to one to one to many without addressing the identity, the beliefs, the fears, and all of that. And that inner work is so massively important to the point where people don't realize that you can't have the transformation in your income and in your impact without the inner transformation. What is it that surprised you most, Claire, as you stepped more fully into your entrepreneurial path around the inner work, like personally for you? What was it that came up as you started reaching to get to multiply and get closer to 7 figures?
I have done so much work on myself in my own journey of growth. And as a psychologist, that's what I do all day with people. And for some reason, I wasn't thinking that business would really contain that. It might sound silly in a way, but there was just this surprising feeling of, oh, all of the stuff that I've worked on in other areas is also going to come up here and also now presenting me an opportunity to work on in a different way. And so questions around money and what it means to earn it, to have it, to want it, questions around visibility. What does it mean to be seen? What does it mean to be seen as an expert, as someone who's trying, as someone who wants to build something versus, acting like it's all easy breezy? I think that's been something for me. Yeah, just really questioning How am I showing up? How am I being consistent? What is the mindset that I need to have to really grow into someone who's able to achieve and do more than I've done before? Because you're right, it has to be a transformation of your identity in many ways. And that's big.
It's a huge piece. And when someone at six figures is plateauing and starting to get frustrated and saying, why isn't this happening fast enough? I will tell you, just because I've worked with tens of thousands of women, it is always about the mindset. It is about the paradigm. It is about the identity. It is about all of the stuff on the subconscious, because identity drives behavior. The subconscious drives the actions or the non-actions. So we have to go and do the inner work. You provided a really good example. And I know it's one that you worked on, this visibility, one that we're all working on as women in Boldheart is, it hasn't been safe for us for generations, even just ancestrally, to be visible and to speak our truth as women. We've been silenced in more ways than one. Please refer to the witch wound episode of this podcast. And so from the perspective of knowing that, to get out there and let people know that we exist, we need more visibility. And yet, if there is this fear, if there is this past trauma, if there is, if we've been criticized by our parents, or we've been just, bullied by people on the school playground, we won't want to put ourselves in a place where we can be visible and judged and where we have exposure. There is this, fork in the road where we have to say, okay, I want to get past my plateau, but it's going to require visibility. I'm deathly afraid of visibility, the trolls, the haters online, what will people think? And so you just stay stuck, not doing anything. The only way that I have found is to actually heal and do the inner work around the visibility and the vulnerability. And then that opens up the ease of getting out there in a much bigger way. And then, of course, when you get out there in a much bigger way and the criticism or the judgment doesn't touch you, then you grow your business. I would love to hear your journey around the work that we did within Boldheart, or the inner work on visibility, and how that transpired in your own business and setting yourself up as a thought leader.
Yeah, I am still in process. I would say
so am I.
The fact that I'm sitting here with you and having this conversation is showing me the progress I've made. I've actually, in the last couple of weeks, this is the third podcast that I've sat for, and I've been able to show up in a way of feeling calm, feeling excited, but not like it's not causing me this angst of worry. And I think that is just saying, this visibility piece for me, that has been a tension point throughout my whole life, honestly, of the kid who had a hard time raising my hand in class, the person who always had something to say, but was always scared to say it. And so there's been these moments where I'm like, I want to put myself out in the world more, but it's hard. Maybe this isn't what I should do. I get in this loop around it, versus now being able to just start taking those steps and not over strategize and not overthink, and just say, is this something I want to do? Is this something I want to say? I'm going to take that step forward instead of letting all that chatter stop me.
What was it specifically about what we did in Boldheart that helped with the nervous system regulation or helped with any anxiety, visibility? Was it the EFT tapping? Was it some of the things that I taught? Was it just seeing other people getting out there? Like, what was it for you, your personal journey around the visibility inner work?
I would say the tapping was really helpful. I also did extra work alongside Boldheart that, Boldheart introduced me to. I would also say that you presenting on visibility, it gave me a name for what I was experiencing, and a framework again of just like, oh, this is part of this. This makes sense. And so to just acknowledge it and really understand that everyone struggles with that. I mean, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people. And then, being in community and hearing other people's journeys and seeing other people's courage and ability to start moving forward is so inspiring to see people do the thing that you're trying to do. And also, again, to see their fear around it or their journey around it. It's not just some polished outside view, you're really seeing both sides.
There's actually a gal who also has a clinical practice. I know you know her, but I'm not going to mention her name here. But she's been doing the EFT on visibility really since about a month, every morning, just like, you've been working. And I see her showing up like she's never shown up before. And she's like, yep, water off a duck's back. Doesn't matter when people say this inner work that you're talking about is massively transformational when it comes to getting your business out there. But I think so is self-worth. And, if I had to say two of my biggest things that I find transformational in women's businesses and lives are self-worth, but also just really creating a new identity and an identity of being worthy of everything that you desire. And one of the statements that you shared with me earlier that really impacted you was about how you allocate your time reflects how you assess your self-worth. And why was that, when I said that within the program, why did that land so deeply with you? And how has that sense of working on your self-worth transformed your business?
Yeah. I mean, at this stage in my life, with my business, with two small kids, with a partner, a house, there's a lot pulling for my time. And when we did that activator, it was just like I was seeing myself and how pulled I would get in all these directions, and how I was the one who would say, oh, someone needs to be picked up because they're sick. Like, I'll go do it. It was almost like, yes, I want to be there, but also, can I take a minute and just say, I'm in the middle of something, and maybe it doesn't always have to be me. And just really thinking about, how do I stay consistent to my bigger picture goal without just being people pleasing and at the whim of everybody else's needs, desires. As a business owner, there is a sense of you're the backstop if something happens. And so you're the person who's sometimes picking up the pieces if that needs to happen. But does that always need to happen the way that I'm doing it? Do I always need to be showing up right in that moment and making sure everything is perfect right in that moment versus allowing myself the space that I need for myself, first and foremost? And so, after that, I also allocated time differently with my partner in terms of how we're checking in and making sure that I have my space that I need to really stay available for myself. And so those things have transformed my business in the sense that I'm not just on a hamster wheel in the same way, but I'm giving myself more focused time and more time that really actually moves the needle for the business and myself.
I think that with the guys growing their business, they're just really focused on the business, right? But there's all this invisible load that women have that I don't see my male counterparts in the other masterminds that I've been a part of for the better part of 20 years. They don't have the same obligations and expectations societally and just things that naturally fall on our plate outside of work that consumes their energy. Like usually the guys are not the one that the school nurse calls first, saying you have a sick child, right? The Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving planning, the Christmas presents, all of the things, the household tasks, none of those naturally and societally fall on their laps, but we just accept that those are our obligations. And so I know that part of the way that I teach is to increase the self-worth and just to question every obligation. Listen, I'm a mom, 3 kids. Of course, I'm going to go and pick up the child, but just questioning, like, why am I the one being called? Why am I the one being asked to be the chaperone on the school trip? Things like that. And then saying to my partner, hey, how about it's your turn?
Yeah.
And this whole idea of rejecting, not vehemently, not violently, but just from within, rejecting the fact that every request or every obligation or every expectation is valid, and then questioning it, and then putting ourselves first as opposed to reactively people pleasing.
Right. What we've learned. And so I think that what you're saying, just reacting from that place versus giving myself a moment of asking and taking a little space in that.
Yeah. And I would love to talk about undercharging or over giving, how that is created from deeper patterns around self-worth. Have you seen that in your business, in your work? How does the self-worth piece connect to business in your experience other than, expectations?
Yeah, I definitely see that's a big part of it as well. Of again, it's almost that people pleasing thing of someone needs something and I can give that to them. But what they're requesting actually doesn't work for me, but I'm going to do it anyway. And what happens over time when you feel some of the resentment and you feel that it's not something that's really sustainable, but in starting to think about what is it that I need in order to feel valued, to feel like my time is working for me, that I'm making the amount of money that I want to make, that my business is doing well. I mean, those things are important to obviously consider. But when you're in a place of just pleasing, those things become like take a back seat. And so to really put that front and center and to think about how do I need to arrange things? How do I need to set prices? What are going to be my standards in terms of what I'm willing to accept? And that doesn't mean I can't have a lot of empathy and try to work with people and help people in different ways, but it doesn't mean that I need to kind of jump at every one of those situations and put myself in a position where I'm not feeling like my work is getting me where I want to be.
Yeah. I think we're touching on something that doesn't get spoken about often enough, which is this idea that when you raise your self-worth, you naturally want to raise your prices and you're okay with it. And you're not going to overfunction just to be liked because you like yourself. And so many women, probably the majority of women that I meet who have their own business, are not charging enough. And it is directly tied to the self-worth. And I have heard you talk about the fact that the entrepreneurial journey very closely is aligned with or mirrors the healing journey as you do with your own clients. Talk to me about the mirrors between the entrepreneurial journey and the healing journey.
Yeah, I see when clients that I'm working with, as they start changing their identity, their beliefs about themselves, what they're willing to accept and how they interact with the world changes. So it's exactly what you're saying about raising prices, right? It's the same idea of a client may no longer accept certain treatment from a partner, from someone they're dating, from their boss, because it just, they can see it differently. It no longer fits with how they see themselves. And so that's true with business too. When you start seeing how you're doing all of these things and you're running yourself ragged, and as your identity shifts and your self-worth shifts, there's a feeling of, I don't want to treat myself that way. And I don't want to be in that position anymore. And I need to make a change. And all of a sudden, it no longer feels aligned what you were doing.
Yes, it's almost like where you would accept to work harder, to bend over backwards. When you do the inner work and you go on this healing journey, then that almost seems, after on the other side of the transformation, the healing transformation, that almost feels foreign. Like, why would I bend over backwards? Why would I undercharge? Why would I say yes when I really mean no?
Right. And when your beliefs change about yourself, about the world, about what you deserve, how you're interacting and how you're behaving changes. It's just part of it. And so as we're talking about the entrepreneurial journey, there's so much of this mindset work and this belief work that changes you and then changes how you act in business and in other places. So again, when I entered Boldheart, I wasn't expecting that to be part of the process. And it's been a really beautiful part of it. And, I remember one of your coaches saying something like, if you want to improve and you really want to have a growing self-growth journey, become an entrepreneur. And I was like, oh, well, here we are again. But yeah, I just find that to be very cool. And it's been a very beautiful part of this process.
Yeah. So for the first time I reached the 7-figure mark, the million a year, was 18 years ago. And I remember it was October 9th of 2008. I'll never forget it. And my husband, Derek, I told him, I was like, honey, I think I just crossed $1 million mark today in my own business. It took 7 years. And he said, wow, congratulations. Should we let's celebrate? And the thing that I was celebrating that night wasn't the actual 7 figures. It was who I became in the process. It was the self-worth. It was the digging deep, doing the inner work. It was the commitment and dedication to reaching new levels and persevere and to become more disciplined or more aligned with my goals. It was who I became in the process of earning 7 figures that I was most proud of. It wasn't the 7 figures themselves. And what I have found with every single woman who's doubled their business or reached 7 figures with me over the course of all of these years, she'll always say yep, you were right, Fabienne. I mean, it's cool to make 7 figures, but it's more about I'm so proud for myself. I'm proud of the woman that I became in the process of becoming $1 million a year person. And I think it's that inner work, that really pointing to that inner work and that mindset as the gateway to expansion. And I know that's a big thing that you do with your own clients. Would you describe how you work with your clients in case anyone here is interested in working with you?
Yeah, my background is in cognitive behavioral therapy, but I use that type of modality pretty flexibly with people. And it's really about helping people understand what negative beliefs that they have about themselves, the world, other people. And typically people are operating from a set of beliefs that they sometimes are aware of, sometimes aren't. Things like the world's not safe, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, that aren't just conscious front and center in your life, but you're operating from that place. And so part of the process is working with people to understand what those beliefs are, where they came from, and how to change them into a more realistic and positive view so that they can operate differently, behave differently. Part of this process is also changing behavior. The two work together, but that's sort of the kind of cornerstone of it. Obviously, there's a lot more nuances in there, and exploring people's past and attachment and how those beliefs came to be is typically part of the process too.
Yeah, but I really think that, not I really think, I've been operating Boldheart in this way for so long because without doing the inner work, you're just not going to create the transformation either professionally or personally. The
Yes.
identity really drives the behavior. And when you see resistance show up, whether resistance to implementation or resistance to raising your rates or showing up online or hiring somebody that you don't feel qualified for or feeling like an imposter, it always goes back to your identity. And so when you do the inner work, when you increase your self-worth, when you change your identity, the expansion naturally follows. And even though I teach this to others, I do it myself. You teach this and you work with others, you've done it yourself. And I would love to inspire the listeners of this show if you'd be willing to share what in 2 years you've been able to create in your business in terms of new results, even though there's still more to do. We all still have more to do. Would you be willing to share?
Yeah, definitely. So after the first year in Boldheart, my revenue went up $100,000 just in that one year. And then the following year, another about $50,000. So yeah, I would just say that revenue wise, things shifted. And that's not the only measure of success, obviously. But part of what happened was I had a formula, I had confidence, and I was able to actually come at things from this really grounded, clear place. Not saying that happened overnight, and it continues, you continue to kind of unfold the layer and take the layers off and really look at how you're going to implement everything in your business. And there's a process to that, obviously. But I feel like the confidence that I gained and the ability to say, I know what I'm doing and I'm not just reacting, has been huge. My hires have really changed. I've been really clear about letting people go when they haven't been working more quickly. That has been a huge reflection of self-worth in the sense of not holding on to situations or people that aren't a total match. And yeah, we're chugging along in a really smooth, grounded way right now. And so it's been a real gift.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of people will be very inspired knowing that you have a $500,000 a year business with two little kids at home. Like
I
that,
appreciate
I think that was the one thing. And my kids are older now. My youngest is 16, but it takes a lot more energy than people realize to get your business to 500,000 a year when you have little people who, at home who depend on you and your heart. And I just want to celebrate you. Being at 100,000 a year, just at 100,000, puts you in the top 5% of entrepreneurs in the whole world. You, Claire, are in an even smaller category, being at a 500,000. What do you think is possible for you in the next, let's say, 18 months to 2 years as a result of everything that you've learned here at Boldheart?
Well, first of all, thank you for those kind words. As I was saying, I never thought of myself as a business person or an entrepreneur. And to actually now have the confidence of I'm starting a new business that is really about creating content and coaching and helping women improve their relationships and move past attachment wounds so that they can really feel connected and calm in their relationships. But my heart and what I really have wanted to do for a long time is be in a creative space where I'm creating and sharing. I've been creating my whole life, but as I've been talking about this visibility piece, it's been very hard for me to always share. And I feel now that I have the confidence to step into that space and to really start creating and giving, and have the confidence also to start a new business and actually see it as that. Just like, oh, here I am now running a business, but no, this is what I want to do. I know it's going to take a lot of work and effort and focus and working on my mindset. And I also feel the confidence that I can do it. And that's been a big testament to these last 2 years at Boldheart. So thank you and the container for that. And, just the process.
It's a powerful process to be in a community of women who are moving beyond the expectations of society and saying, yes, hi, I am worthy of 1 million a year. I will put myself in the container and in the community and within the mentorship of people who will get me there. And just even saying yes to something like Boldheart is such a testament to the kind of woman that you are, that isn't willing to settle for less than absolutely everything, and who wants to have it all, whatever all means to her. And I've just had such a pleasure witnessing you blossom. And I'm here still, championing you and waiting for that next version of you to, just open up into the world. What is the best way for someone to reach out to you should they want to work with you or talk to you about a collaboration or something like that? Would you share?
Yes, definitely. So my website is just my name, clairedowdlecina.com. So you can find me there, reach out to me there. I'm also on Instagram under that same name.
Of course, we'll put it in the show notes.
Perfect. Thank you, Fabienne. I appreciate the kind words, and it's been such a pleasure.
It has been such a pleasure celebrating you today. And I just want to thank you for the deep level of, first of all, authenticity and inspiration that you've brought to all of our women business owner listeners today. I know that the best is yet to come for you, as it is for everyone here. And I just thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Fabienne.